Some places do not feel old, they feel awake. They feel like pain got sealed into the walls and never found a way out. Tonight, we are heading to the frozen edge of the fjord, into a fortress that has stood for more than 700 years, and into the path of something that still hunts its stone corridors. Before we go any further, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join the archive. Because the file you are about to hear is one of the coldest documented accounts in all of Northern Europe. The story starts in the year 1299. A new king takes the throne, and Oslo needs protection. Enemies could strike from the east, so a fortress begins to rise on a hard strip of land above the water. Thick walls, narrow gates, and towers built to keep invaders out. But in that age, stone alone was not enough. Builders feared collapse. Priests feared curses. Common people feared what moved in the dark. Across Northern Europe, there are archival records of a brutal belief called a foundation sacrifice. The idea that a living creature had to be sealed inside a structure so its spirit would guard the place forever. At this fortress, that darkness centered on one gatehouse tower. According to local records and old oral history, the builders took a stray black guard dog and buried it alive inside the masonry. Think about that moment. The animal confused, then panic, stone closing in, air thinning, claws scraping against rock, a howl bouncing through unfinished halls, then weakening, then stopping. If suffering can stain a place, that was the moment this fortress was marked. That is where the entity known as Malcanisen enters the record. The name is often read as the vicious dog or the evil canine, but what witnesses describe is not a normal animal. It is something worse, a guardian twisted by terror, rage, and centuries of death. For generation after generation, soldiers, prisoners, and workers reported the same thing. Not a wandering dog, not a trick of moonlight. They described a shape darker than the night around it, shaggy, uneven, almost smoking at the edges, and always the same detail, reddish-orange eyes, glowing like coals in a dead fire. What makes this account so terrifying is that the beast does not need to attack. It does not chase people down and tear them apart. According to the old warning, it only needs one thing from you: eye contact. The curse is simple, and it is cruel. If you look into the eyes of Malcanisen, death follows within 3 months to a year. Not maybe, not sometimes. That is how the warning was passed through barracks, cells, and guard rooms for centuries. Imagine standing watch here in winter. Snow blowing across the courtyard, black sea beyond the walls, your lamp shaking in your hand. Then, from the gateway near the old tower, a shape steps out and stops. There are records of guards found trembling, so hard they could barely hold a weapon. Some refused to explain what they saw. Others whispered only one word: the dog. And then the stories turned darker. A guard sees it in autumn, dead from fever by Christmas. An officer mocks the account, thrown from a horse weeks later. Again and again, the fortress built its reputation the same way, one death after another. The place only got heavier with time. It stopped being only a royal stronghold and became a prison. Damp cells, iron restraints, men freezing through long nights with almost no hope left. Prisoners called the place a living hell, and in those corridors, many claimed the dog was not just an omen, it was the warden. Picture a chained prisoner lying awake in total dark, then hearing heavy paws on stone outside the cell. a slow growl, a smell of wet fur and decay creeping under the door. In a place like that, terror does not arrive all at once. It leaks in. Even modern visitors have reported sudden cold pockets near the main gate and the oldest tower. Not a light chill, a drop so sharp it feels like stepping into a cellar of ice. And with it comes the smell. Wet animal hair, rot, grave dirt. Witnesses say they often smell the thing before they ever see it. The fortress is tied to another documented presence too, a faceless woman in a flowing robe seen near one of the old halls. Some accounts connect the two apparitions. The dog brings dread. The woman brings grief. Together, they turn the fortress after midnight into a closed circle of fear. Then came the Second World War, and the old stones were fed again. Occupying forces turned the fortress into a prison for resistance fighters and political prisoners. Executions took place on the grounds. Men were marched to the walls and shot where others once stood guard. After that, the reports surged. Patrols described a huge black beast moving along the perimeter. Trained dogs refused to enter certain archways and started whining like frightened pups. One sentry fired at a dark shape near the stables. The shot echoed, but the figure dissolved into shadow. Months later, that sentry was dead in an accident far from the wall where he pulled the trigger. Skeptics say the fortress can create infrasound, low vibrations from wind, tunnels, and stone that trigger panic, nausea, and even shadowy hallucinations. That could explain fear. It could explain a sense of presence, but it does not explain why the same black canine keeps returning to the record or why so many witnesses tie it to death. Paranormal researchers point to the stone tape theory, the idea that stone can hold intense human suffering and play it back under the right conditions. But Malcanisen does not behave like a recording. It changes position, it watches, it reacts. That makes the account feel less like an echo and more like intelligence. One of the most disturbing modern reports came from a museum employee in the late 1980s. He was locking up alone near the old tower when he felt pressure on the back of his neck, like something urging him to turn around. On the stairs stood a dark animal shape. Then it began to glide downward. When it entered the weak light, he saw patchy wet fur and those red eyes burning through the dark. He remembered the warning and dropped his gaze to the cobblestones. He heard claws pass beside him. He smelled wet earth. He stood frozen until the presence was gone. He survived, but later admitted he spent years dreaming that he was trapped inside a wall, scratching for air. That may be the cruelest part of this file. The beast is not only a monster, it was once the victim. A living creature tortured so a fortress could stand. What walks there now feels like the memory of betrayal made permanent. Today, people tour the grounds, admire the harbor, and leave before night settles in. But guards still patrol. Wind still moves through the gatehouse, and when twilight hits the gray stone, some say the air changes, like the fortress is listening. So if you ever walk those courtyards and the cold hits all at once, if the hair rises on your neck, if the smell of wet fur reaches you from an empty passage, do not search the shadows. Do not try to confirm what is there. And whatever you do, do not meet its eyes. Because if Malcanisen looks back, the clock may already be running. Like this video, subscribe, and share your own documented encounters in the comments. because the archive is always waiting for the next file.
So, after delving into the pure medieval terror we just explored, the agonizing history of the fortress prisons, the chilling sightings of the faceless woman, and the deadly curse of Malcanisen, the demonic black dog guarding the gates, you're probably wondering, what exactly is the vibe at Akershus Fortress today? Well, my personal take on this massive Norwegian stronghold right now is all about its deeply deceptive historical charm. If you walk along the beautiful Oslo waterfront today, expecting to find a dark, rotting, Hollywood-style castle of doom, you will be completely caught off guard. During the daylight hours, this stunning 13th century medieval fortress actually possesses a remarkably serene and peaceful aesthetic. Perched right above the Oslo Fjord, with its pristine stone architecture, lush green grounds, and sweeping views of the water, it feels incredibly cozy. Bathed in the crisp Scandinavian sun, the property genuinely looks like a bright, picturesque Thomas Kinkade-style painting of a historic, royal European estate. Today, it operates as a vibrant cultural site, filled with locals and tourists enjoying a beautiful afternoon stroll. But honestly, from my perspective, that picture-perfect, welcoming exterior is exactly what makes the reality of Akershus Fortress so deeply unsettling. The contrast is just jarring, because while it looks like a serene, majestic castle by day, the dark legends baked into its very stone foundations refuse to rest. You can be enjoying a scenic view of the harbor, but the moment the sun sets over the icy water and you find yourself standing near the old castle gates or wandering the freezing, shadowed cobblestone pathways, that suffocating dread rushes right back in. The demonic presence of Malcanisen hasn't vanished. It is just waiting in the pitch-black archways, ready to lock its glowing eyes with whoever dares to walk alone in the dark. Akershus Fortress proves that the most breathtaking royal castles can still be guarded by the hounds of hell. Thanks for joining me on this case here on True Haunt Lore, and I'll catch you in the next mystery.